Great. Well, thanks for being here, everybody. And let's kind of give an overview of what we got planned for this working group. The legislative session has started, and maybe we could start if there's any like big outcomes or things that have happened generally with the start of this legislative session. I thought maybe it would be interesting. You know, Something that's happened with like a budget report or something from the governor's office, anything that like had kind of sets the tone for the session. Does anyone have any updates on that? Or if it's just kind of stay the course, kind of a normal beginning to session. I bet you would have that information, Alice, maybe out of anybody.
I mean, I also definitely defer to Amy and Nellie. I think that in general, it is an extremely competitive budget landscape. And we are in a cuts budget, not as bad as we previously thought, but that's a lot of the discussion that I've heard, that it is a very competitive budget landscape, and that there will need to be a lot of gen generally what we've heard is that there needs to be a lot of public support for things that cost money. So I think we're going to talk about that a lot in this committee.
Yeah, it's so important. And we have luckily this network to call on with lots of different networks of folks to give that support. So that's great. And we've heard that. We've prepared for that. Awesome. So, just an update. Sophie's put together the bills matrix to for folks to put your bills or things that you're tracking in there for folks to see what's happening across our network. It's in the notes document, and I can share that again. But yeah, the link to that is in there. And yeah, Lauren, if I can do this part real since I've kind of put the agenda together. And then yeah, so there's our notes and there's a link for our matrix document. Just getting started on that. Please put any updates you have for your bills. And Sophie's got a document that she's got some other partner priorities and things and other bills that she'll be adding. And we'll share this with the full network in our newsletter in February, early February. And yeah, be sending it out to the listserv as well, so folks can kind of start putting their bills in there. So we're tracking those. It's an important way that we see what's going on across the food systems. I also want to mention, I think we've lost a longtime member of this working group. Greg Holmes has left 1,000 Friends of Oregon. And I know they have an active kind of like active policy platform around some of the our work here in land protection. I know we have Nellie here who might be able to speak to that during our member updates, but we'll need to do maybe need to do a little extra work to make sure we're capturing that in this space because it's important to our work. So just a call there for that. Yeah, we'll be sending that out. And then so we've talked about we're going to do some meetings and convenings for this working group during the 2025 session. During our last meeting, we said that we would there's going to be a end of February big outreach push to our network for lobby days, rallies, things of that nature that y'all are doing. And then in after the chamber deadline for the first chamber deadline for April 9th, we'll do an OCFSN kind of CFS at the legislature working group convening to kind of give an update where things are, some bills that are beginning to move forward, and we'll call on y'all to be presenting at that. We're also presenting at the Small Farms Conference February 15th, 14th, 15th, one of those. And I've been communicating with the team there that will be presenting at that. And I'll be moderating that panel. And then we'll do an end of session wrap in July. And then our regular meetings. Yeah. Hi. Thanks for being here, Kristen. Appreciate it. And then in our regular meetings are the fourth Friday at 1 p.m. We'll send another note to the group to make sure that that works for folks. I think that maybe Oregon Food Bank might have a conflict at that time, which is not good because they have a really big food for all Oregonians push right now. And so we'll need to make sure that they're represented in the space it's in some way. So yeah, and let us know if it's this doesn't work for you, and we'll make sure to put that out to the list to make sure we get the best turnout as possible. But we wanted to make sure we got a meeting here right during the start of session, so we prioritize this time to just move forward. And that's all the updates. Any other questions about what we got going on as a working group or thoughts? Feel good? Let's hear from you all about what's happening. And Alice, why don't we just jump to you since I interrupted you?
No, I jumped the gun. I wasn't looking at the agenda. Can I ask a question about the small farm session before we move on?
Sure.
Um, do we need to have, is there going to be a prep meeting for panelists for that, or should we send in, is there any timeline that you need us to send slides or how long we're
Yeah.
going to be speaking, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'll resend that email. And it's changed a little bit. We were holding a space for Greg, and now that's not going to happen. So
I
I'll follow up with some time amounts and slide stuff. I think I said the week before I can. So we have the whatever that Tuesday or Wednesday before the session, the conference. I can put the slides together then. And yeah, so I'll make sure that y'all are set up with that. I don't think we'll do a meeting though. I think it's okay to you and I would need to talk about and we've been emailing with Megan about the disaster resilience funding
Yeah,
um thing, but we can do that over email. I don't think it warrants a meeting.
sounds good. Thank
Sweet.
you.
Yep.
In terms of an update, um, we had a hearing for our meat processing bill, which is HB 2146, or 64. I keep transposing the two last letters, but it is 2164. And that I think went well, although it was a little truncated, because it is a bill that the House Ag Committee has seen other things for this program before. We kept getting pushed down the hearing agenda, and some of our farmers, well, all of our farmers, did not get the opportunity to speak, but myself and Mike got to explain why we need to close the loop there. That bill is to actually allocate staff funding for 2 FTE phased in over the biennium for inspectors for the state meat inspection program. For folks on the call who aren't familiar with that work, that is a program that is a parallel to USDA for folks selling their product within the state lines of Oregon. And we had that ODA entered into the cooperative agreement with USDA in July of 2022. We've been slowly bringing more facilities online. There has been $11 million of grant funding put into facilities, and now we don't necessarily have inspector coverage for those facilities to operate. So that is not the best, but we've been working with ODA to put that forward. So that's great. The record has closed on that. It closed at 8 a.m. this morning. And happy with the amount of testimony. I think next week, the thing that we are looking out for is that on the 27th in the House Ag Committee, the the bill regarding the Spanish language pesticide application education courses at OSU for the pesticide application certification, and I'm probably saying that wrong, but Spanish language pesticide application training, there's a bill to allocate funds for that. Um, and it has a hearing on the 27th. It's a priority of the Association of Conservation Districts. We will be supporting that as well. Look out for that. And then the week following will be the Disaster Resilience Grant Fund hearing on the 5th, which I'm sure we'll talk about in various spaces. But those are the things that we're looking out for in the next couple weeks. And then I will also put in the chat the link to registration for the FOF Rally Day on March 4th. And we are going to start our weekly FOF member briefings Mondays at noon. Those will happen every week, half hour, public facing. They'll be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel as well. But if you would like to attend, they're open to absolutely everybody. So that's all I got.
Thanks, Alice. Um, do other folks want to just kind of whoever's got something that they're working on, want to come up, or I can call on somebody. Amy.
Hi, all. I am also eating my lunch and I'm probably gonna have to jump off a little early, but we are working on a position at ODA that we have. It's been in the budget before, and we've gotten very close to getting an organic policy specialist at ODA. And so we are working on that again. It does have two bills in both chambers, and like many bills, we're just hoping to get a quick hearing and get it sent down to Ways and Means, and ideally it would end up in a budget bill. So we are probably pushing for a Senate hearing. We've been told, here's another, I should have said this earlier, that there are more bills than usual. Always long session, there's tons of bills, but apparently there's even more than usual. And so even if you oftentimes get a bill hearing in both chambers, this session you might not. So we're actually just pushing to do something in the Senate for that. We've long been tracking, along with Alice, the canola issue in the Willamette Valley Protected District. And the latest I have on that is while Rep. Sharf, who is a canola farmer and a legislator, has at least three bills introduced on it. The governor and Rep. Helm and ODA had said they were not going to engage in this unless there was a compromise, which seed stakeholders had compromised before. We maintained the compromise that we met, and still the other side won't agree to that. And the good news is that the legislature is recognizing that our side has been more willing to compromise and the other side isn't. So they're telling us right now they're not going to be pushing a bill. There was some concern that ODA was going to be pushing a bill, but apparently they're not as of right now, and they're not going to engage Rep. Sharf's bills either because they don't yet represent a compromise. So sounding like the can is going to get kicked down the road on that, but who knows? So we'll be monitoring that. We also are supporting Food for All, Natural and Working Lands Grant Fund, OAHP, the Disaster Resilience Grant, anything that kind of percolates up through this network that we have a history of supporting, we're continuing to do so. I'm trying to think. We have a new lobbyist. Her name is Tess Milio. So if some of you run into her or work, she's really going to be representing me because I have a lot of other responsibilities right now. So I'm not going to be as present in the legislature as I have been. So, please tell her, if that you're in this network, if you ever need anything. She's very nice and friendly. So I think that's about it from me. Thank you.
Very good. Awesome. Nelly.
I'm happy to go, Andrew. So Nellie McAdams with Organic Trust. We're kind of a one-trick pony in the legislature, and Organic Heritage Program funding is really the only thing that we're working on now, or usually. And we have a bill, House Bill 3131, that just had its first path hearing in House Ag on, I guess it was Thursday. I'm blanking on the days. Or maybe it was Wednesday. And then we're going to have another one on Monday. We expect the funding package to pass pretty easily out of policy committee and then wait forever to get a hearing in Ways and Means. And we're working with Thorn Run as our lobbyists to help us with legislative strategy. The funding request is 17.3 million. 14.5 of that is for working lands easements, and that would help leverage about 32.5 million in federal dollars. A lot of that has been secured already. However, there's a federal funding freeze, and so who knows what's going to happen in this world. But some of that funding could also be matched with landowner donations. So there's a number of ways that it can be used. And then there's about 12% of the total funding is for OEB administration, and 1 million is for the other three grants under OAHP, so succession planning, technical assistance, and conservation management planning and activities. I would just say that we have a really good sponsor list. I think it's like at least 30 people, and half and half Republican, Democrat. I don't think that there's much dispute at this point over the merits of the program. It's just the funding ask. That's all I got for right now.
do you have any thoughts on Thousand Friends, who we should connect with, or how we should keep abreast to what's going on there?
Jake, is it Wessels? Is their lobbyist, but I don't think that he's the one who would be engaged here. I can
Jim?
ask Mary. No, well, Jim is probably the best, but actually, yeah, that's right. I did have you. Um, Greg did have me before he left on the coalition calls, have me substitute his name for Jim Johnson's name. So Jim at friends.org would be the one to include. And I can
Okay.
give him a heads up.
Yeah, I got introduced. Greg introduced me to him, so I can follow up with Jim. Great. One other question around there's the Natural and Working Lands bill, the renewal funding that I think is administered by OAHP. Does that overlap? How does that connect? And maybe Sophie has something with
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we, the Natural and Working Lands $5 million request is sort of following up on their $10 million of funding from the last legislative session. I'm sorry, is there someone on the line? Is Megan on the line or someone who can speak to it with more authority? Because I'm happy to give the floor to them and just talk about how they intersect, if that makes sense.
Sophie's here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Sophie, I'll hand it over to you. But what I'll say is that the programs do not have overlap. The only way that Natural and Working Lands and OAHP interact is that some of the funding would be administered for climate smart agricultural practices that are administered through Oregon Ag Heritage Program's Conservation Management Planning grant. But that grant program can also receive more funding for other planning activities, and none of the Natural and Working Lands funds the easement portion, which is the majority of the OAHP requests. So
Got it.
I think of them as complementary, but not duplicative by any means.
Very good. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say that covers it really well. No, thank you. For those who don't know me, I also work for ORCAN. I'm doing this work with OCFSN, but I also work with ORCAN. And I don't have too much to add to that, just that, yeah, the NWL is sort of asking for renewal of funding for the NWL NCS. If people have heard of both, they're like kind of the same thing, the Natural Working Lands Fund, the Natural Climate Solutions. And yeah, so we're asking to renew that funding. And I agree, I think it's a complementary to OHP, but happy to answer any questions if people want to email me about that or anything else.
Great. Yeah, Lauren, Jim is unable to come to the session. He's said that he's not available for the Small Farms Conference. So yeah, I'm not quite sure who to get to talk about that.
It would be oh, good. I just see a message from Alice. I mean, I just want to understand where folks in this group who pay attention to these bills, where they're coming from. This was our agricultural tourism program lead who does not typically engage with policy, but has been very pulled into this larger conversation about the changes or the adjustments or clarifications in land use regulations that I got a little clarification on that from Greg Holmes and a person whose name I can't remember, who's at DLCD at the Rogue Valley Food Solutions Summit last week. And they talked about, a lot of the scary things people were worried were going to happen, did not happen. This is really about, so that was very helpful. So it may not be that there is someone there who is the expert on these bills, but it would sure be helpful if we knew something about them because they may come up. So, Alice, and I don't know if Nellie, what your involvement with the Thousand Friends suite of bills is, but maybe we could chat about those at some point.
I've also met with Blair Batson from their legal team about some of these bills. I know that's not necessarily her complete area of expertise. But if Jim's not available, maybe she's interested in presenting, just to make sure the info is out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's this HB 3133 amends conditions under which a county must approve a farm stand on land zoned for exclusive farm use. And I think I've understood that it's basically they have to keep track and provide verification that they're under the revenue amount. So they have to keep records, which in itself is not onerous. It's keeping records to prove that they qualify to do that. Certainly, we all know that implementing records can be onerous, but one would hope that they would be straightforward, right? So that could be a concern. And again, these things come up with farmers, as you all know. And then there's something related to, actually, she included something about authorizing a producer of eggs to sell and deliver the eggs to a restaurant without an egg handler's license. Maybe that's just going to be squashed because that's going to violate, food safety code or this kind of thing. So we don't have to go through all of them. It's just, this is my brain trust. So it would help. And then just knowing what our audience is. I mean, when we were at the summit last week, when Greg and this other person whose name I can't remember were up there talking about it, specific to Jackson and Josephine County and protecting Class 1 farmland, somebody asked, I've heard that Jackson County is going to remove all EFU designation or something. It was one of those like, no, but let's move on. So we're not, that's not the level that we want to engage at in this session, but it's more like, wow, there's a lot of stuff out there.
I just put into chat the 4 bills that Thousand Friends and a group called Ag for Oregon are working on proactively. All of those are related to closing some pretty serious loopholes in non-farm use zoning on farmland. And I don't think they should be too controversial.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, everything with land use is somehow.
Thanks for that.
Great. We do have Tara from OAT presenting, but she'll be focused on OAT's priorities. I don't know if we can, I don't know what her level of expertise is on all that. So
if we could just point to like, oh, this person, go to here and find out more about that even would be great.
I'll make sure to connect. I'm going to be connecting with Jim, and I'll make sure that we have his blessing to that he's our person to direct people to.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Chantel, you're here learning. Is there anything that you're tracking at all? Or, I feel like I heard that Danny's moved on.
Yeah, so Danny took a really great role with the Washington State Conservation Commission. And so we are rehiring for that policy manager. They'll be coming on board probably in the next month. Cool. So that's partially why I thought I'd pop in here and hear what's going on. I know Addie has been in touch with Nellie about some of the, advocacy for funding for farmland preservation. So trying to keep some open channels. I'd say the other thing we're really just trying to watch, I don't know if anything is coming up in the legislative session, but would be anything around agrivoltaics and solar siting on farmland and just being really aware of the FSEC ability to get around to site solar on exclusive on EFU zoned land, and also at the same time agrivoltaics is not allowed, and so it almost is this fast path to putting solar on ag land without even needing to consider agrivoltaics. So just something we're learning more about and following, and I don't know if anything is going to happen at the legislative level, but it's certainly top of mind.
I have a question about that. I heard about the Friends of Gap Road proposal that didn't end up getting pre-session filed. Do we have a bill number on that one? Did that get filed? Okay. I
don't know anything about that one, but if anyone does, I'd love to hear more.
It's exactly about that FSEC like alternatives analysis thing is what that was part of the package that Thousand Friends asked me about earlier this year. I can look into that, and maybe it's one of these that Nellie already put in. But then I had a conversation with DLCD last week, maybe it was the week before, and they mentioned that there's also an agrivoltaic study bill for that was previously it was pre-session filed by Senator Dembrow, but obviously Dembrow has retired, and so now Lively is taking it up. And I don't know the bill number on that one, but it was something to look into. So if you have info or opinions on that, Chantel, I'd love to know, because it's not my
Okay.
area of expertise, but just something somebody brought up to me.
Yeah, I will look into that. I might have it here in an email, and if so, I'll drop it in the chat, and then I'll follow up, Alice, at a later date.
Amazing. Very good. That's why we meet here, for these connections. And our folks at Rogue Food Unites, are you all involved in anything this session? Are you with the coalition for the Food for All Oregonians, anything like that? Anything you'd like to ask or share with the group?
So we're in like this learning phase. Like this is something that we're exploring as our RFU. So we're just learning and joining every committee that we can as we continue to learn. But we are following the Food for All Oregonians. And we actually have a meeting with Moira next week too, to see how we could be part or just be part of those conversations also.
Amazing. Great.
Yeah. But we are all in to learn. So please send anything our way.
Great. Well, this is a great group of folks who are involved in all sorts of stuff, and we'll make sure to get the Oregon Food Bank folks here at future meetings.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other? Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted I don't know if this is like, I think it's kind of a fun bill. I don't think it'll do a whole lot, but on the 27th, there's a hearing for HB 3141, which designates October 12th as Oregon Farmer and Rancher Day. So that's kind of fun. I don't know. I don't think it does anything other than declare a state holiday, but I don't know. Sometimes we need a fun bill to support.
Could you repeat that? The bill number?
HB
Yeah.
3141. And I don't know how they chose October 12th, but October 12th will be Farmer Rancher Day.
Great. Very good. Anything else? Is anyone tracking this has been brought up to us from folks, the Oregon Worker Relief Fund, there's some reestablishing a permanent program to support farm workers who lose income from extreme heat, smoke, and other climate disasters. I'm specifically interested in that and how it connects with our disaster resilience funding and its Oregon Just Transition Alliance and Paccoon. Or no, Paccoon, a member of Oregon Just Transition Alliance, is leading this, and there's some definite overlap with our program around supporting Spanish-speaking farmers. We put some priority into that, and so that's something to track. We'll put it on the matrix at the very least, and just seeing if anyone here has been paying attention to that.
So that would be specifically for farm workers, or would it also be for farm owners?
It's farm workers. Yeah, so it's the bill expands on the Oregon Worker Relief Fund, and I can share a link on that. And then it by defining what a climate disaster is at a state level and establishing a permanent program to support farm workers who lose income from extreme heat, smoke, or other climate disasters.
Yeah, and that sounds a lot more like the original disaster relief bill that was created in the emergency session in 2021, where we were still really focused on relief before there was the switch to talking about resilience. No, I mean, I'm glad you brought it up. It's just really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been meaning to connect with these folks and I haven't yet. So that's out there.
Yeah, and is that Paccoon's primary interest in the legislature? That would be good to know.
Alice might know more.
Yeah, I spoke with Ira about this the other day, and I'm meeting again with him next week because we're doing a joint event on a testimony training. And so it's this bill to renew the worker relief fund, and then they're also introducing a worker standards board bill, which for the ag sector at large, like based on some worker standards boards in healthcare and fast food in other states. I believe the healthcare one is in Minnesota and the fast food worker standards board is in California. And he described that one as a newer concept. And so that might be, a heavier lift. Last time I talked to him about it, he didn't have text ready yet. So maybe we can circle back with Ira and get more specifics because it sounds like a really cool opportunity for the state.
Amazing. Did we capture that? Um, Maybe could you repeat the top line on that one again, Alice?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was trying to find a link for something and I missed part of
No,
it.
no problem.
Yeah, the Pacoon's second priority is to introduce a bill creating an agricultural worker standards board. And that is a specific type of state, like it's not just an advisory group. This board would have rulemaking authority.
Mm.
So it's a really interesting proposal.
Alice, do you know, I know you have developed a really great relationship with Picun, and I mean, do you know other parts of other farmer associations or parts of the agricultural industry that they have relationships with that would walk with them to move something like this through? Because there have been some great wins related to priorities in the past, like whether it was farm worker overtime or the OSHA rule change, I mean, important things. And I know I have, at least here on the more conventional agriculture side, and then some smaller mid-scale farmers that, wow, we're really struggling we really believe in this, but this is really hard to implement on the ground. And so I was just curious, like how Picun is working on these kinds of concepts with agriculture, which is not one thing, to think about what would it look like in practice, and how can they get behind it. I just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, my impression is that they're working with groups like ours and then individual farms, and most of their coalition relationships are in the labor space. So like they are a labor union, so they work with other labor unions. And so that I think is maybe an opportunity for us to work together in a collaborative space and to understand, the policies that come out of labor movements in a way that ag has not had to grapple with because of the exclusions from the Fair Labor Standards Act and things like that. So I think that there's a growth opportunity here.
Oh, no, I totally understand. I'm just thinking about what happens in a legislature or what happens in, yeah, it's like, how do we keep all of our farmers with us in this as this learning opportunity as we go forward? So, yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I'm hearing the part of the response from not just, I don't talk to Farm Bureau directly or Oregonians for Food and Shelter. I'm sure they're full on against all of it, but talking to some farmers at our farmers market who are trying really hard to comply with farm worker overtime and are having to cut markets because they haven't figured out how they can, and it's just, are we addressing that in a way that brings them along so that they're ready for the next, okay, here's the next thing we do related to labor and agriculture. It's a much larger conversation that we can't really cover here, but it's sort of that movement building piece. And because I don't work directly with Picun, I don't know how they're doing that movement building beyond, of course, yeah, working as part of a very strong labor movement in Oregon.
Yeah, and I think that a way that we can be allies is to make sure that all our farmers are very aware of the incentives and reimbursement tax credits that are available to
Yeah.
the farms below. I believe there's a set that's for below 25 FTE total on the farm and a set that's below 50. And we are not out of that onboarding phase with farm worker overtime, and there is state money available to reimburse people for overtime wages. And I think those incentives are underutilized right now. And I think that is due to I can speculate about why that is, but I think that we could be, as a community, doing more to make sure that people understand that those incentives are available so that people can take advantage of them and make sure that they're getting all of the on-ramp funding that we worked hard to build into that overtime bill to make sure that that transition can be eased.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's definitely a place where we could step up.
I
Yeah,
would just add there's a lot of bills working to amend the ag overtime bill. And the Board of Ag recently voted for a resolution to amend the amend the ag overtime. So I have a feeling Pacoon's probably got a lot on their plate in terms of managing that and engaging where they need to be engaging. I think the two most let's say like total repeals of ag overtime I've heard aren't going to go anywhere, but I'm sure they're busy dealing with indeed like the Farm Bureau, et cetera, who are incredibly opposed to any thing of the sort, and trying to figure out, if the legislature is going to do anything or not.
thank you for saying that, because I knew I had heard that before, but I kept not hearing what was, okay, so there are proposals to amend it. I will be interested to see what those particular proposals are.
Yeah, my lobbyist flagged them all. Like we have a whole kind of bill list that we're tracking that I can get those two. There's two. She's like, they're not, her opinion again, within this community is that they're not going to move at all. But again, know that there are some people that are trying to do a complete repeal. But then there's other efforts to definitely try and amend it.
Yeah, having that info is super helpful for our folks who are out there working with farmers who don't work necessarily on policy, but are hearing things and want to know. So this is a great conversation. I really appreciate it. Alice, sounds like we have some good stuff to follow up on.
Yeah, and I just wanted to also mention that I have also heard what Amy heard about repeals not moving forward, especially because the OHSU based like worker health and safety report that's associated with the overtime law that was passed is not complete and won't be complete until 2026. That's the original timeline. So there will be like a health and safety report on the impact of overtime and of working conditions without overtime and the differences therein that will factor into the conversation. And what I've heard is that the governor's office and leadership in the legislature is not interested in repealing the bill completely until that study has been complete as well. So I think this is an ongoing conversation.
Great. Thank you. Super helpful.
Yeah. Nice. One last thing that I've just recently saw, Alice, is SB 76, Water Resource Department to study groundwater permit requirements for small agricultural parcels.
Yeah, that's my placeholder bill for the water issue.
Got it.
So we are a little bit we're a little bit in limbo there because we have been negotiating with water conservation groups and trying to find the right proposal to bring forward that balances the need for equity in the water system. I could talk about this for an entire
You
hour.
can just give us the top level.
Yeah, so we are trying to find the right guardrails to put on a proposal that will respect the need to preserve vulnerable aquifers, while also introducing a little bit of equity into the first in time, first in right system that we have for commercial irrigation. The short version is that there are likely to be multiple proposals on this topic, and we will have another proposal introduced fairly soon, and that we are still in discussion and would welcome anyone's opinions and or needs and wants in this proposal. We have been doing so much community outreach over the last year on this topic, and I know you all are sick of hearing me talk about it, but I'd be happy to discuss the granular particulars of where we are in individual calls, because it's just like it's too nitty-gritty to get into at the moment.
Great. Okay. That's what I saw that and I was like, that seems like what Alice has been working on. So, okay, that makes sense. Cool. I think that's what we have for today, y'all. Well, yeah, I see some size. Amy,
No, I'm going to just say it was great to see you all. I'll work on getting a little list of bills to get to you, Andrew, or add to the matrix.
please send it to Sophie. But yes, thank you for that.
Yep, sorry. Yes. Yeah.
No problem.
I apologize. I'll say I just emailed you, Andrew. I get the Oregon Farm Bureau emails, which are like a helpful synthesis to start with. So I sent that to you, but Sophie, I'll send that over to you as well.
Thanks.
Great. Yeah. And I was just going to plug again. I put my email somewhere here in the notes, but for anybody who needs it, it's just sophie@ocfsn.org. And please email me any information you have, any bills you've heard of. I will compile it all together. I also want to mention, I kind of forgot, as I'm also working for ORCAN, pretty much all of our priorities have already been covered, but just as a quick update on ORCAN's priorities, the highest priority we have is the NWL renewal, Natural Working Lands, or NCS. Also the disaster resilience, which we're working with Alice on, I'm really excited for. And then OHP is also one of our priorities, is getting that renewed. So I'll put a couple notes about that, but yeah, if anybody thinks of anything else, happy to chat about it over email or via phone. Just let me know, yeah, what y'all got going on. And advocacy events, that's what I was going to say earlier, is if you have any other events you want us to put on the calendar, please send me those. So
Thanks, Sophie. I just put a note in our running notes that if we're going to do a mini convening after the first chamber deadline on April 9th to focus on the bills that are actually moving forward, given this crew, it would probably be valuable to set a date for that pretty soon. So we should look at, the week after that deadline. It seems like that would be an important turnaround. We don't have to do that right now. We don't have everybody, but it would be good to send out a poll and see if we can get that on the calendar and then push it out as a save the date for our network.
Yes, that's a great idea. Thank you. We'll do that. Thanks, everybody. Good to see you.
Thanks. Have a great weekend.
Nice to see y'all.
Bye.
Thank you all for having us here.
Thanks for being here.
And Andrew, I have a quick question for you. If you don't
Yeah,
mind.
yeah, totally.